Hello to everyone, welcome. Welcome to a new session in my podcast of Women on the Bible. And we started first with Eve, and now it's time for Sarah. This is your pastor, Yeti. Welcome to this study, speaking about women who were very important, and maybe names that you maybe never heard about. Anyway, may this help you for yourself, to encourage you the way that they try to stretch out their lives and walk their journey in the way that they experience the hope and the peace and the love and the encouragement of their God. So, anyone who comes to this study is welcome. Sarah, her name means chieftainess or princess. And her character, beautiful enough to attract rulers in the ancient world. She could be strong-willed and jealous. Yet Sarah was considered a loyal wife who did what's right and who didn't give in to fear. And her sorrow, that she remained childless for most of her life. And her joy, that at the age of 90, she gave birth to Isaac, the child of the promise. And key scriptures, write this down, is Genesis 12, 1 to 20, 16, 1 to 8, 17, 1 to 22, 18, 1 to 15, and 21, 1 to 13. And the last one is in the New Testament, Galatians 4, 22 to 31. Now let's begin with her story. Excuse me. Sarah was 65, the age many of us retire, when she began a journey that would lead her into uncharted spiritual territory. Leaving behind her homeland, she and her husband, Abraham, moved hundreds of miles south to Canaan, a land fertile with the promises of God, but barren of everything cherished and familiar. God has promised the land to Abraham and his offspring. From him would come not just a family, clan, or tribe, but an entire nation, a people who would belong to God as no other people had. The promise spread like ripples from a stone pitched in water. If Abraham was to father a new nation, surely Sarah would be its mother. Yet she longed to give birth, not to a nation, but to a one small child she could kiss and cradle. At first, Abraham and Sarah found it difficult to support themselves in their new homeland. Soon a famine made life so severe that they moved on to Egypt, where Abraham, fearful of Pharaoh, suggested a deceptive maneuver to save his skin. I know what a beautiful woman you are. When the Egyptians see you, they will say, "This is his wife." Then they will kill me, but will let you live. Say you are my sister. And she was his half-sister indeed, so that I will be treated well for your sake, and my life will be spared because of you." So Sarah did as her husband asked, and Pharaoh soon added her to his harem of beautiful women, for the privilege he paid Abraham in the currency of the day: a bevy of sheep, cattle, donkeys, camels, and servants. But though the two men seemed satisfied with their bargain, God was not. He proceeds to strike Pharaoh and his entire household with diseases. The Egyptian ruler soon summoned Abraham, demanding an explanation. As soon as he heard the truth, he allowed both Sarah and Abraham to leave, taking with them all the riches they had gained in Egypt. So the couple moved home again. But now several years had passed since Abraham and Sarah had heard the remarkable promise of God, but still there was no child. So Sarah took matters into her own hands, following a practice common in the ancient world. She gave Abraham permission to sleep with her Egyptian maid, Hagar, Sarah's slave, who would become a surrogate mother for the promised child. Before long, Ismail was born, but the child brought only discord between the two women. One day, several years later, the Lord appeared to Abraham while he was sitting at the entrance to his tent. "Where is your wife, Sarah?" "There in the tent," Abraham replied. Then the Lord said, "I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah, your wife, will have a son." Now Sarah, who had been eavesdropping from inside the tent, laughed and said, "After I am worn out and my master is old, will I now have this pleasure?" But the Lord said to Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh and say, 'Will I really have a child now that I'm old?' Is anything too hard for the Lord? I will return to you at the appointed time next year, and Sarah will have a son." Because Sarah was afraid, she lied and said, "I did not laugh." But he pressed her, saying, "Yes, you did laugh." A year later, Sarah gave birth to Isaac, whose name means laughter. Of course, the joke was not lost on the 90-year-old mother, who exclaimed, "God has brought me laughter, and everyone who hears about this will laugh with me." But Sarah's humor was short-lived. Fireworks flared once again between the two mothers until Sarah forced Hagar and Ishmael from Abraham's household, leaving them to wander in the harsh desert. And though God provided for the two outcasts, it was through Isaac that he would keep his promise of a new nation and a deliverer for his people. Sarah died at the age of 127 and was buried in Hebron. Between Isaac's birth and her own death lay 37 years, ample time to reflect on her life's adventure with God. Was she ashamed of her treatment of the ill-fated Hagar? Did she remember laughing when God told Abraham she would bear a child at the age of 90? Did she appreciate the echoing irony in young Isaac's laughter? Did she have any idea she would one day be revered as the mother of Israel? Indeed, a symbol of the promise, just as Hagar would to become a symbol of slavery under the law. Scripture does not say, but it is heartening to realize that God accomplishes His purposes despite our frailties, our little faith, our entrenched self-reliance. Through Sarah's pragmatic attempts to help God keep His promise caused plenty of anguish. Even in our own day, the struggle between Israel and her Arab neighbors stems from the ancient strife between two women and the children they bore. Still, despite her jealousy, anxiety, and skepticism about God's ability to keep His promises, there's no denying that Sarah was a risk taker for the First Order, a woman who said goodbye to everything familiar to travel to a land she knew nothing about. A real flesh and blood kind of woman who lived an adventure more strenuous than any fairy tale heroine. An adventure that began with a promise and ended with laughter. Her life and times and the names in the Bible times names had a significancy they often do not have today. The names that the mothers and fathers of these times gave to their children gave us a glimpse into their personal experience, sometimes reflecting their emotional response to a situation. When Sarah was 90 years old, God told her that she and Abraham would finally have the child from whom she had longed. She could hardly believe it. After I am worn out and my master is old, there you go, will I now have this pleasure? She exclaimed that in Genesis 18 verse 12. When their son was born, Sarah named him Isaac, which means he laughs. And she said, God has brought me laughter, and everyone who hears about this will laugh with me. Genesis 21 verse 6. Perhaps one of the Bible's most poignant scenes is played out when Rachel, in great pain and knowing she was dying, named her son Ben-Oni, means son of my trouble. But Jacob, the child's father, loving this little one even in his sorrow, renamed him Benjamin, son of my right hand. Genesis 35, 16 to 20. When Hannah's son was born, she named him Samuel, which sounds like the Hebrew for heard of God, because God had heard her cries for a child. 1 Samuel 1:20. And many of the Old Testament prophets had names that spoke of their mission. Isaac's names means the Lord saves. Obadiah's names means servant of the Lord. Nahum's names means comfort. And Malachi name means my messenger. Throughout Scripture, God gives to His people names that offer a picture of their significance and worth to Him. We are His treasured possessions. the people of his inheritance. We are sons and daughters of the living God. We are his friends. No matter what your given name, God knows it. In love, he calls you to him by your name, and you belong to him. So there is more to our mother of Israel, Sarah, but that's for another time. Maybe be encouraged as we listen, and maybe re-listen to this woman who wanted to get out of her words and her emotions that she really was laughing. And I think she just did a normal reaction, looking at our physical body and thinking, okay, God, you really mean this, right? But for God, everything is possible. In every time of our life, in every precious moment, in every difficult times, for ourselves but also for others. Maybe look at these women who represent something as they walk their journey and gives us a message. And may the message of these women come to you too in our days. Go with God, and may the peace of God be with you. I wish you a wonderful day wherever you are on this globe. Enjoy life. Bye-bye. This is your Pastor Yeti.